Welcome to the University Fishbowl. It doesn't really look like a fishbowl, but I'll explain to you in a second what a fishbowl in terms of the format really is. And then it will look like a fishbowl after I explain that. So we're going to do 3 parts of the introduction. First we're going to do introductions, then we're going to do some sounding out of content, and then we're actually going to figure out what it is that you would like to add to the content that we have already thought, and then I'll explain the format to you. Okay? Right. So let's do. Okay. Here's the question I'm going to ask you. Could you please tell us what your position is, but keep it really short because otherwise we're gonna take too long. Then why you're here, and then say something that has nothing to do with it. Okay, so that people also see something of you which is unexpected. Okay, so it's 3 questions. What is your position? Why are you in this session? And then please say something that has got nothing to do with it at all. Okay?
I'm sorry, what was the last one?
The last one, just say something which has nothing to do with it. So you can say something, you know, my thing for today is the flash floods. Which I'm from the Netherlands. I arrived here yesterday evening, and I got 9 o'clock this morning. I got this thing on my phone, which was scaring the hell out of me with a flash flood, which I thought was great. This is what today's technology can do for you. So something like that. Okay, just something that catches your attention. Right? Everybody ready? Please.
I knew you were going to start with me.
Would you like me to start with somebody else?
No, that's all right.
Okay, good.
My name is Emily. I am the program director for Yale Conferences Events at Yale University. And that was it. And then I have to say the one thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Why are you here is the second question.
I am here because we recently took over the conference center on campus, and so we're very new to this organization, so we just wanted to kind of come feel it out. And I'm really interested in hearing what other universities do with their conference centers on campus because it's so new to us. And I've been awake since 2 o'clock in the morning because my flights were all delayed. So powering through right now.
Just as jet lagged as I am.
Yeah.
Okay, next.
Hi, I'm Katie Davis. I'm Director of Business Development for Aramark's Asia Division, which is our Hotel and Conference Center division. I am here because I have been with Aramark for about 15 years, and the better part of my career is all spent in our higher education sector, and we're doing a lot of prospecting on college campuses. And I am so glad that there is an alternative to Diet Pepsi on the offers out there, because normally in Diet Soda Land it's only Diet Pepsi. I'm just so thrilled to have an alternative option.
And your name again?
Katie.
Katie.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Ryan Coate. I'm the General Manager for the Mission Bay Conference Center at UCSF in San Francisco, work for Aramark. Here, obviously, for networking, to see what's going on in the industry, discussions with colleagues, and I play water polo.
Water polo?
Yeah.
Okay, we can get afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah, really cool property.
I used to do that.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. But we're not going to talk about it now.
Me?
You're here.
Yeah, I'm Mark Cooper. I'm not from a university property, but I am looking forward to hearing what the challenges are and the opportunities that you guys in your sector are experiencing. And by the way, I did work for Europe's largest academic conference venue group for 8 years back in the early 2000s, which was Warwick Conferences, University of Warwick, United Kingdom. And I too am really pleased that we've got Diet 7 up because, after 3 days of it, I'll be tired of that.
Hi, my name is Michael. I'm from Banff, Alberta. I'm Vice President of Operations at Vijver Center, Arts and Creativity Institute. I'm here really actually at the push of my staff. A lot of people from our group had come here before, and they thought before I retired I should attend one of the conferences. And, but I think it's more than they just wanted to get me out of the way. Really, I'm very interested to just experience. I have experience. I mean, I've been a member for a long time, and I have experienced it firsthand. Something that's just to promote there. I spent about a third of my job dealing with high-end artists Cheryl Crow and Jackson Brown, all of these people coming in out of our Arts Institute, and they don't use their real name. No one even knows they're there.
Okay, great. Well, thanks.
I'm Nick Vesperman, the Customer Experience Liaison at the Center for Leadership Excellence in Bethesda, Maryland. While it is not a university, I find that the challenges that we face as a private conference center relate very closely to the university, so over my time I've attended this fishbowl. Look forward to it again this year. Fun, interesting fact, I don't drink coffee, but I'm thinking about getting mildly obsessed with the coffee on the tap out there, coming out of the keg, because that was pretty delicious. And I think you should make Mark go again since he moved to the other side of the room when you get around to it.
I wasn't satisfied with my first time. So I'm looking at the second.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to explain to you in a second.
Okay, my name's Barbara. I am the Director of Rooms Division for UCLA Housing and Hospitality Services, and have recently taken on the additional responsibility of the Director of the UCLA Luskin Conference Center, which opened 18 months ago. Let me see, something kind of off-kilter just for the heck of it. I'm a huge Los Angeles Dodger fan.
It's great season,
Not great enough.
The two of you came in a bit later. What we're doing is one question, your name and your position. Second question, why are you here in this session? And the third is something that's got nothing to do with it. Tell us something that's got nothing to do with it.
Okay.
You ready?
Yep.
Yep.
Eric Olbrich, Penn State Conference Center, or Penn State Hotel and Conference Center, Penn State University. Here, just to get an idea of other universities. I mean, we have 300 guest rooms, 48 meeting space, that whole thing. I just get different ideas of what's out there. And something different, I scuba dive on the side, and I'm a professional scuba diver.
Cool. Good. Thanks.
I'm Bill Dorr from Amadeus Hospitality, and I'm here. We like to connect with a lot of our current customers, prospects. We provide a lot of event sales solutions for a lot of the centers, and I want to learn more about what's going on in the university area. Excuse me. And I had a tearful moment. I stepped outside and I saw flowers coming up, and I saw trees blooming. So it was very difficult coming up from. I live up in Maine, so it was tough to look at without snow on the ground.
Thanks.
I'm Jared Long. I'm the Director, General Manager of the Inn at Villanova University. I'm here because I just joined the Villanova team in February, so still getting acclimated to the university lifestyle, so really great to chat with all of you about what you've experienced and what I'm sure I'll continue to experience. And then something completely different, donut wall.
That's the future.
I'm on board.
It's the future.
Just the future.
That's all you take away this week. You're good.
Hi, I'm Paul Dolce. I'm the Managing Director of Conference Centers for Dolce Hotels and Resorts. We manage 2 properties in Canada that my friend Al works at one of them for the Ivy School of Business, and I'm looking to gain more diverse perspectives on the university world. And I can't resist popcorn when I smell it.
Thanks, Paul.
Hi, Sue Korkinski from the Bassin Executive Conference Center, Director of Sales and Marketing there. And, I'm here. I've come to this session the last couple of years and enjoyed it because we're obviously all in a niche in the business, and it's good to understand what everybody else is thinking and going through. And random, but I'm thinking about the Boston Marathon today and what is going on. Yes, it's an icky day in Massachusetts.
Thanks.
I'm Kim Reagan. I'm with the University of Delaware. I'm the event manager for our business school. And I am here to network and talk about what other people are experiencing on the university level, both working with students and faculty and administrative people and all kinds of stuff. And then on a side note, I love Maine. I love moose more than anything in the whole wide world. And I'm retiring there. I have 15 years to go, but I look forward to it.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm Al Morgan. I'm the Director of Operations at Ivy Spencer Leadership Center in London, Ontario, Canada, where it's still snowing and icy and driving us crazy. Have been involved with property for 23 years, so it's always nice to be with my kind of people who understand the craziness of universities and how can we get faculty not to wear slippers to class. Odd thing about me is being from Canada, I have an enormous infatuation with American Pop-Tart flavors.
Oh, there you go.
It's like a shrine down here in Pop-Tarts.
Wow. Okay, when we have the next break, you can explain to me
Sure will.
what that actually is.
Yeah.
In Europe, we wouldn't know.
Oh, you don't have one?
No, I don't think we do.
It's the future.
The future is donut wall and
Yeah, my name is Brian Pedio. I'm a manager at the UCI Conference Center in Irvine, California. Been here about 5 years. I'm here we are really striving to be best in class, and IACC was one of the first moves. I mean, we're on a journey of innovation. We talk about that journey as precisely that, never just a granted destiny kind of thing. And so IACC has been wonderful in terms of just the input that I get from others. When I was 22, I started playing drums for Glenn Campbell's daughter, who was breaking into the business.
Whoa!
And here I am.
But do you still play the drum?
Oh, it's still doing it. I could barely. It's just it's a compulsion.
Yeah. It's good.
Okay.
Okay. Good. Thank you, everyone. Content-wise,
Yeah, let's talk about
you
it.
good?
Yeah, I'll say a quick hello too. I know most of you in the room, but I'm Nancy. I'm at the Rizzo Center. I've been at campus-based centers. I was at Babson for 13 years. I've been at my property now for a little over 2. We're owned by UNC's Human Flagler School of Business. I'm here because the bylaws say I have to be here. But I might also have a good time and learn a couple things along the way. Tonight at 6:30 p.m., this is like the craziest story, a friend of mine who's like the kind of quirkiest, one of those quirky weird dudes that you don't quite understand, worked on a circuit board eons ago that is going up in space. He's legit a rocket scientist. I was laughing because somebody says rocket scientist earlier today, and I'm like, that's so 6:30 tonight, if you look to the sky, which we won't be able to see because of the clouds, the circuit board is going to space.
Cool, that kind of fun.
So we were talking about this session, and this session's always been one of my favorite ones as well.
Could
because
I just the one
Yeah.
which is about, it's got nothing to do with it. Yeah. My daughter today did her biggest exam on Freud in psychology. Could we have a big round of applause for her?
Yay!
So that I can say, wait, I have to switch on the thing.
The recorder.
Yes, go.
Yay!
Okay, thank you. I'm going to say that later to her.
Start to understand you now, mate.
Sorry?
Does that mean your daughter will now start to understand you?
I don't know. It's a vague hope.
Probably not. The whole thing.
Okay, Nancy, we figured out a couple of topics that we thought would probably be interesting.
Yeah, so we had a couple conversations and tossed around some things that we feel are important to talk about in this kind of group, because as we all know, we work in kind of these wacky little environments that are so commercial in some ways and so specific to our owner and their needs in other ways, and we have a lot of balls to juggle. Literally, our number one client, our owner, is usually in our building all the time. And so we have different and unique experiences to talk about. So we threw up a couple ideas. So what we'd like to do is kind of walk through these, add anything else that you guys want to talk about, and then kind of vote on the ones that we want to tackle. And Mike's going to talk us through how we're going to facilitate that with our funky setup. So the things that we talked about were the impact of fresh development and investment that's happening in the university properties and the university market right now. UCLA Luskin has just recently opened. Texas A&M is opening. Yale. There's a variety of new openings happening. I know just in my microcosm of the world alone, UNC and Duke have both really gone to great lengths to gut renovate and rehab their own properties, and NC State has opened a brand new hotel. So just in my little microcosm, there's been massive development in that area. How are we utilizing our campus culture and our service delivery? Because for most of us, we are an extension and expected to be an extension of the university's experience. And when anybody that comes to campus, how they interact with us is how they would interact with campus and how we do that. while still keeping the culture of our properties and the culture of our management companies. Integrating campus events into our environment, and how do we use that as a benefit and really a new opportunity for our clients to help differentiate us, because they can tap into a lot of the cool things that are happening on our campuses. Collaborative ownership relationships, because again, our owners are our clients and one of the top users of our facilities, and that can be, those relationships can be challenges, but there are ways to work through that. And how do we do that in a way that propels our business forward, as well as honors what they want to do and accomplish with their asset as well. And then managing the objectives of the universities in conjunction with our external clients, because a lot of for those of us that are doing multi-layers of business, we're managing the many entities on campus, whether it be executive development, executive education, the individual departments, and then we have our clients that are completely unrelated to the university, that also have expectations of what they want to do when they're in that space.
Okay, so these are 5 topics that came from us, or rather from Nancy, of course. And what we'd like to check with you now is if you're already happy with this, or whether there is something that you think is more important that you would like to put on this list as one of the things that we can deal with.
One thing I'd just like to get some opinions on is, how do you manage the different price points for your university owners and those that are coming into the building? Are you giving them a premium? Are you giving them a discount? Is it the same? What services are being offered to both? Is it the same? Is it different? That's a curiosity I have.
And that's different from point 5. It goes beyond managing objectives.
Yeah, this to me is more about service and the types of things that you offer. This is a real reality in our world as far as,
Okay, good. Any other proposals from anybody? Or are we happy with this list as relevant things that we would like to talk about for about an hour? Yeah?
Happy with.
Great. Now what we're going to do is we're going to vote on which ones of these we think are most important, so that we can dedicate most time to those that is going to be top of the list. Okay? Very simple. There's 6, and you can vote for all 6. And we're going to vote by using the sound level of noise that the whole group's producing. It's called a noise vote. Yeah, so that's why we practiced earlier on. That was about a 9, I think, what you did for my daughter. Thanks for that. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to call them out one after the other, 1 through 6. And I'd just like you to all make the amount of noise that you think that one deserves. But before we do that, I would like you to do could you do something which is like a 5, so that we have a bit of a benchmark? What does 5 sound like?
all right.
Got it? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm definitely this year, but it'll be fine.
Let's vote for number 1. Vote now.
Can you read?
Can you
It's
read
hard
it?
to read.
Sorry.
Oh, so while my
Can you bring the flip chart
writing,
close?
my clear writing isn't coming through to you.
No, can you bring it closer, Nancy?
We can do that too.
Yep.
Got it?
All right. Does that help?
Yes.
So no one is managing the impact of fresh development and investment into the university in the style of centers and properties that we're running.
Clear? Vote now. I think that's a 3. Yeah, you agree?
Yeah?
Yeah,
I was
okay.
gonna go math.
Second one, what's that?
Second one is using the campus culture in service delivery.
Okay. Okay.
Wow.
About a 6.5.
6.5.
6.5. Yeah, okay. You did the 0.5 on your own. Yeah. 3 is?
I'm sorry. Integrating campus events.
Okay, ready to vote? Go.
Sadness.
Yeah, it's I agree, it's about a 2. Okay.
Downgraded.
4 is?
Collaborative ownership relationships.
Okay. 6. Okay. Managing objectives of university and external clients. Vote. 30 more. 7. You agree?
I'm gonna give it a 0.5. I didn't realize we were on the 0.5, so that's good.
Yeah, that's
I like
good.
it, I like it.
And the price points. Yes. That's a 0.1.
6.1.
Yeah.
All
Yeah,
right.
thanks. Okay.
Nosed it out.
So clearly, we want to discuss first this one, then this one, then this one, and then this one. And if there's time left, we can go to this and this one. Clearly, there's less interest in these two. Yeah, fair enough?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, how does the format work? When we start, we would like to really have a conversation. But the conversation is going to be done by the people who will be seated in those yellow chairs. The others will be around, so we'll take some chairs away to be closer, all of us. It's good to be standing, but then at some point you may get tired and you will want to sit down. But preferably, we have 5 people sitting there, the others around it. So we'll start with 5. It means that there's always 1 seat available. Okay? Whenever anybody feels like, now I want to join the conversation, you just pick that seat, sit down, and join the conversation. At that moment, though, somebody else needs to get up. So it's going to be an interesting interplay of introverts, extroverts, of socially acceptable behavior, and things like that. Somebody has to get up. So you're going to look at each other and say, okay, well, I'll go, okay. And then you can return later. You can return anytime again you want to. But there's always 1 seat available for somebody to join the conversation. Okay? Clear to everyone? Any questions on this? Then, really at the end, I'll give you maybe 3 or 4 minutes to just draw some conclusions for yourselves and write them up, so that you don't just immediately go away, but really take some time to process in here before you leave, and just write down the main points for yourselves so that you don't, you think you remember, but actually it tends to become diffuse once you leave. So I'd really like you to just sit down and write down a couple of things. Okay? So that's how we're going to do it. Meanwhile, we'll meet from the point of view of the format, and Nancy from the point of view of content by asking questions and by stimulating you to do the socially acceptable thing or the socially unacceptable thing. From my side, we'll keep the format running. Okay, so let's move some chairs towards the wall. Please all get up and do that. And then we'll stand around, and then for topic number 5, managing the objectives of the university and external clients, I'd like to have 5 people who voted that this is an important thing to talk about to start right away. Okay, so please take a seat. You can always join again afterwards. There's always going to be 1 seat available. But I do need 5 people, so I need 2 more. Okay, 1 more please. And please stand quite close. Don't stand close to the outer walls, but stand quite close to where the conversation is. Okay, great. Now it's going to work. You need 1 more person, yes please. Yeah. Okay, Nancy, can you kick off the conversation, and then we'll see who's the first who's going to respond to your provocation.
Excellent. So when we're talking about managing the objectives between the university and the external clients, how are priorities determined?
And remember, it's a conversation amongst you. It's not answering her question.
I'll give you a little case of what I've experienced. We are directly associated with a business school at one of the major Canadian universities. And we have had sense at times that if we do too well on our survey results, it takes away from what the teachers are trying to do. And that's kind of an oddity in the business to have to be able to kind of juggle that a little bit. We're trying to do everything we can to add moments and experiences to our guests, but sometimes you feel like you're being pushed back a little bit by your customer because they don't want things to be too good in a way. And it's kind of weird to say that, but it is truly something that we have encountered in the past. Different levels of different professors obviously have different mindsets when it comes to that. We could have one program 1 week and they say, you know, do everything you can do. You have another program the next week and say, you know, just kind of back off a bit. So it's a very strange dynamic for us to work with, where if we have an external group that comes in, you know, anything's on the table as to what you can do to create memorable experiences for them.
Can you talk a little bit about what determines in there what are the ones you're supposed to give the gas to and where you're supposed to back off? Or are you privy to that? Is that part of the conversation, or how does that happen inside your?
You get to know certain faculty over the years, you get to know certain programs that run over the years, and you get a sense of some pushback at times from them. So you're careful, you're more careful. You know that that's more of a conservative group. Any external group that comes in that's not affiliated with our owners or with the university programs tend to be, do what you can to impress us. So it is a little bit of an odd dynamic, but it does happen.
And just continuing on with the same university, you know, we bring in external revenue to offset the cost to the school for owning this asset. And our incentive criteria is heavily weighted towards the students of the university. The CFO used to say to me, well, I care about your external business, but I don't care that much. I really care about the MBA programs and that they're getting the best experience of the facility. So it kind of a little bit, you know, of an odd arrangement where you would normally see either parity or, you know, or equal criteria on an incentive program.
And it's, at Villanova, we kind of have two directives right now. One is make sure that the university utilizes the Innet Conference Center. And the other is don't lose money. But in conversations I've had with the university president, the biggest factor for university departments and student groups is cost. So we need to adjust the cost down to make sure that they come. And if I'm adjusting the cost down, it means something has to give, right? I can't provide the world-class service that they just invested millions of dollars in renovations for without being able to pull back on something. And that's not the image that we want to provide. That's not, you know, a world-class university like any of the ones in the room. You don't want to then give a subpar experience to guests who are coming in, but at the same time, you do have to manage that cost. So it's a
Do you have external business?
Hmm?
Do you have external business?
We do, but it's, right now, by volume, Villanova is 60% of my business, but they're only about 30% of my revenue. So offsetting that's an interesting challenge.
Yeah, we're kind of, the UCSF are pretty much the same. We primarily are a UC business and UC affiliates, UCSF, but we've also had a lot of success with kind of taking the strategy of aligning ourselves with corporations in the Bay Area that are tech related or advanced health related. So universities are happy to see, you know, might not be a university department that's totally an event, but it's related to something that's advantageous to advancing health worldwide, which is a core mission. So it's a lot of communication, be very black and white as far as, you know, this is the discount rate for internal UC departments, and then obviously, like you said, you know, balancing the corporate customers with your internal UC customers, and it's we've seen a lot of success, especially in the past 2 years, of kind of making sure that balances, and then, you know, managing the reputation of it, because the most important, I think, I don't think we all agree, but working at a university is kind of like working at a country club. All these different departments are like members, so, you know, making sure that the members and people who depart, it really is, you know, if you're anesthesiology or oncology, you know, managing them like their member, because you develop these relationships with them. So I think that's been some of our success at UCSF.
Our experience in Banff is, I've been there 22 years, and the first 19 we spent competing with each other, whether you were in the arts departments, whether you are a leadership development school, whether you were the client-driven conference game. And we, our target is about 70% of our revenue each year comes in through earned revenue. So it's pretty aggressive, and so there's a lot of competition for resources. About 3 years ago, we did a fairly major restructure, and one of the components of it that was critical was that we started making up guidelines and protocols based on all these smart people who work for us telling us this is what the clients are asking for. So within the theater world, I'll use a theater venue, for instance. Someone wants to rent it commercially, we can actually share with them what our protocols are. Our own programming, you know, our own opera, our own, you know, musical will be in there first, followed by community outreach, which we call community access now, and certain other components of our operation have been left to the external clients to feel like they're the lead dog on that sled. And so I'm halfway through that transition. It's about a 5-year plan to do that work. And I'd come back in a couple of years and tell you if I finished it up before I ride off into the desert. But that's something we've been doing on that. I think it's on that issue there.
Well, Leslie, may she rest in peace,
Yeah,
used to
dear
tell us,
friend.
dear friend, a lot of us,
Yeah.
used to tell us that that was a struggle for her, was internally, I think the arts departments used to kind of.
I was the
block.
Antichrist.
You were.
I was,
You-
so
you were
for most of the time until 14, I was the head of programming. And so, Dusty and I were friends for, sorry, she passed away, for those of you that don't know. We're still getting used to it. So we worked in a peer-to-peer relationship through all of those years. And yeah, we really didn't have it right. We didn't figure out a way to use a really amazing resource in a way that could benefit everybody, and it was just a matter of understanding the business together.
Yeah.
So hopefully she's looking in and telling
Yeah,
you.
she's got a smile too.
Thank you.
And you hosted this conference back in 2003.
2003.
You did a fantastic job hosting this one.
Thank you. Yeah. So when I came back in 14, I came back on the as the VP of Enterprise Revenue. So that was my switch, and she was gone by then, but I still remember her every day.
Sure.
I have a question. Do I have to sit down? So you're talking about like booking space now,
Mhm.
right? Okay, so how are you managing that process when so you say you fill in first and then second and then third?
Yeah.
But if I book a 2-week external conference that is like a huge source of revenue, and then the president's office calls me and say, I need to be in there on a Wednesday morning for 2 hours, like how do you manage those expectations? I guess is one of my struggles.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
The president gets it.
In my case, President.
Well, you have to give the picture though.
One person needs to get up.
So there's a give and take of it, right? Yes, we give you that space, here's the cost of giving you that space.
And then you boot your other guy out.
If they still say they want it at that
Yeah.
point.
That's
If
part of the
they may
relationship.
listen, right?
Yeah.
It just depends on the scenario and what they're asking for.
It's a constant work to get that relationship where you can go to a representative of the university and say, we have this huge piece of business. Is there something we can do?
Well,
And 9 times out of 10.
You may as well, because we're actually part of the university, so we're not, we thankfully don't have to worry about a management company ownership relationship, so we're just part of that program.
That
So,
might happen once.
At
every-
UCLA, the president doesn't get the so, what we struggle with more probably is an actual sleeping room. Somebody wants the sleeping room because the chancellor calls because such and such has happened, and you know, knock on wood, lots of times I don't have that room available. So we're not kicking anybody out. So I guess we're fortunate in that way that those politics don't play, at least not yet. But the question that I have is, I hear you talk about, you know, internal customers and the external guests. Do you have any restrictions on who you can take?
Yeah.
Yes.
And what are those
No.
restrictions? You are a no,
No.
and you are yes. So so who can you take?
Well, ours is a little different. There's really not many groups that we wouldn't take. We are a transient hotel as well, but we're
Okay.
set up for individual travelers. We don't take sports teams. You know, there's children. It's funny, I had an example 10, 15 years ago where this was even before we were able to build up our transient guest room bases.
Mhm.
A professor came up to me 15 years ago and said, did you know there's a child in the building? That was my question. So it has evolved over the years.
Oh, no, right?
But and he was in all seriousness, he was concerned, there's a child in the building.
Mhm.
It's like, well, he's staying with his parents in one of our guest rooms, so it has evolved. And then just to say too, with the internal, like, I have a very good relationship with our university ID people. They will do whatever they can to accommodate us if we have a situation like a 2-week group and somebody wants space, but ultimately, if it's not gonna work, they do get first rate.
So I have a significant amount of restrictions on who I can take. So you have to be UCLA affiliated, or UC affiliated. You can be a service or an educational association, but for the most part, it's because the university is sponsoring that association, or I have a professor or an engineer or a staff or a faculty member who's a member of that association, and you know that association, we've gone after that association saying, come here instead of somewhere else. The transient business I can take, once again, is very limited to UCLA. Yes, you could be a parent and your 16-year-old kid coming for a site visit for campus. We do take athletic teams if they are playing against UCLA. That is starting to become a bit more of a market for us. But we are very restricted on who we can take.
You're kind of fresh into it, right?
Yes.
How long have you been up and running?
We've been open a little over 18 months.
Okay, so you just gotta keep working at it.
Yeah.
Can you guys with restrictions talk about whether that's a university preference or if that's how?
It's a university preference.
Because
Because in some ways it's in our
differences,
charter. There was, we had some, controversies when we were built. Lawsuits. Several of the surrounding hotels were not happy that we were coming on board, so, based on some agreements and, city politics, there are restrictions, on who we could take. But once again, the university supported that, because really they said, listen, we don't want somebody who happens to be coming to Los Angeles and says, hey, I like Westwood, so I'm gonna stay at the UCLA Luskin Conference Center. They want somebody, associated with UCLA, so.
As time goes on, they might look at occupancy levels a little bit more and say, how can we build this up? And
Right.
It's just keeping the vision going, and then someday down the road.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Occupancy levels can play a big role in the
Absolutely.
decision-making process.
Yeah, that's not so much a question, but more an observation, and anytime I talk with someone from a university, my first question to them is always, do you have an identity crisis? Because I find that a lot of universities that we talk to, they don't know what they are. What are you? What are you meant to be? Are you an externally marketed facility? And if so, how do you get there? Or are you a closed and internally marketed facility? Or are you somewhere in the middle? But it seems like it's a conversation that needs to happen on a regular basis, because as times change, your priorities, right? The question around priorities change. And so that's always kind of the first question I'll ask is, what are you? What are you trying to be? What are you today? Is that what you really want to be? Or are you trying to be something else? And then what are the policies and practices you have in place to be acting in the way that you want to? And what's the outcome of it? So if you turn around and say, well, we need to break even, but we're a closed internally marketed facility, maybe those two things don't go together. And what's the reality of being like that? And what are the realities of where you want to be, and how do you get there to find some kind of a hybrid method between it? Because I think in the past, a lot of universities were more so that traditional kind of closed setting. We're here, we're an amenity for the campus, we're here just to satisfy space for the university, et cetera. But times are changing, and it's a revenue stream now for a lot of campuses, and there's a very different approach that has to happen to allow you to drive that revenue. But if that conversation of what are we isn't happening on a regular basis, I think that's where a lot of the clash we find comes, right? Because you're trying to drive one thing, they're beating you over the head about, we gotta drive revenue, we gotta break even, we gotta do this. Oh, no, but don't charge that guy over there, like, they're
story,
right? Don't charge them, or kick this group out so the president can
yeah.
come, right? And it's a hard conversation to have, especially up, but I'd recommend, if anything, to find the right person at the right level to have that kind of a strategic conversation with, to say, what are we? What are we trying to be? And is the way we're acting enabling us to be that way, to get the outcomes that we're trying to get?
Well, I'm very fortunate in the sense that our campus atmosphere, there's very few freebies that ever happen at UCLA. Even in our auxiliary enterprises, because we manage the catering for campus, we manage several meeting facilities on campus not associated with Luskin. And everybody gets charged, even when we charge our internal departments. So I am fortunate in the sense that our campus atmosphere is, there is almost no freebies.
But that's been a precedent that's been
Right.
set, right? You're so new and you started that way.
Right, so we are fortunate in that aspect, yeah.
Absolutely.
Because I realize in going to other campuses, that ball doesn't always fly.
we're somewhat fortunate, we are slightly off campus. I think when you actually go into, you know, we have gates into the campus, I think there's a totally different mindset. And we have wonderful support from the business school saying, get what you can. Like, just, here's what we need, but other than that, just, yeah, as long as there's not dancing monkeys coming in the building, you know, you get it. So, we got wonderful support, but I think, again, to our advantage, we're not right on campus. Like, I know you're right in the thick of it, so there's a different perception for somebody going to your property than perhaps ours. Ours is a little more open. It's something we've had to strive to do over the years, is make people aware that we are open to anybody. But it would be a little more of a struggle for your property, for sure.
I think I'm really like picking up on what you're saying, because when our conference center was built, it was built to not be revenue generating. It was just built to exist. And then like six
historically, I mean, I would say.
And then 6 months ago, they were like, wait, we're not making any money. We're losing like tons of money on this conferences, events, take over this conference center and like make it money. Yeah, so I think the culture of the mind, is that it's not there to make money, and now we're trying to make money and everyone doesn't, like, they can't connect those.
You can't do what you've always done and expect a different outcome.
Yeah.
Right? So you have to kind of reset the stage, reset the table a little bit and say, okay, if this is where we're going now, these are the things we historically used to do that are not gonna get us there.
Yeah.
So you mentioned about find that person that will help give direction. Well, we have an advisory board that we report to that's made up of senior level members of the foundation, alumni, and the university. So not only do we get strategic direction from them, they run interference with any kind of issues we have across campus. If someone calls and says, well, that's too much money, I'm gonna go somewhere else. Well, they'll call them and say, no, you're not, you have to use them. And if it's not available, then you can go somewhere else. And we don't have, per diem could be available, but it doesn't have to be available. And anyone in the university can actually pay up to 100% over per diem, providing we had that availability. And as far as sports teams, I mean, that was a critical piece. That's one of those numbers there. That's a critical piece of our operation, because there is a lot of sports teams. For instance, one of the football games, the local supply already set the rate at $5.99 a night. So, and most of those people coming in will be alumni. They're the ones that are flying in on private jets. They're the ones that'll get the rooms.
What university were you with, Tom? Sorry.
And at Virginia Tech.
I think we've already sort of organically drifted into point 6, right? Which is the pricing. So maybe now that you've started talking about that, you can continue that conversation. Obviously, anybody else who would like to join that or contribute to it.
I'd asked the question I asked earlier, do you charge a premium for, I guess everything's internal, everything?
Technically, so like for instance, if it's a direct UC related business, they do have a lower price point than the American Association of Engineers, who is there because of an engineering program that's happening at Engineering 6, which happens to be right across the street from us. So because they are university related but not actual UC, they get a higher price point.
Is it published pricing, or is it just like a sliding scale that you guys?
We use Ideas. Some of you may be familiar with Ideas. It's a revenue. It's essentially a revenue maximization software program. We have like a 10-point sliding scale. Once again, if it's UC related or directly UCLA related, it starts at the lowest price point, and then it starts to go up from there.
Is that contracted for the year, or is that sliding scale based upon supply and demand?
Supply and demand. Yeah, absolutely. You could be paying $259 for this room one night, and 2 weeks later, if I'm at a higher price point, you could be paying $359. And I do have some internal clients, like the Anderson School of Business, who isn't necessarily thrilled about that sometimes. Anderson School happens to be one of my biggest clients. But as we start to book farther out, based on what I already have on the books, their rate could be definitely going up 3 months from now.
And does the business school want peak season as well, usually?
They are all the way throughout, so there is no peak for them. They're constant. Athletics, of course, athletics always says they have no money. It's
Because they're paying the coaches.
Exactly. Athletics always says they have no money. But the interesting thing is the only internal athletic team that stays with me is football. All the other athletic teams who stay with me are the athletic teams coming in to play UCLA. So.
What about conference space? Typical property, we would never book outside of 30 days. If you book outside of 30 days, you might kill your opportunity for selling rooms. Does the university require you to sell that space when someone asks for it, even if it's a year out in advance?
From a catering standpoint, we're at a 90-day sale. So our internal day meetings doesn't take over until 90 days. Because after that point, we realize we're probably not going to sell to that large of a group within that time frame. So we do have a small meetings planner. She handles groups of 50 rooms or less. Those are usually more of our short term. And the interesting thing is lots of times they only want one smaller meeting room or no meeting room at all. So, but we release the meeting rooms at 90 days.
So we have a facilities use agreement that the university pays directly to the hotel, and if anyone in the university wants to use the meeting space within 30 days, they can, at no charge.
Free.
Outside of 30 days, they pay just like anyone else. Whatever the going rates are, C&P, half day, full day, whatever.
So I think we're in a unique situation in the sense that UCLA's housing and hospitality services, when we built our housing program, we specifically built extra meeting rooms, ballrooms, things like that, for exactly those purposes. So the only people who get the space for free, at least from a housing standpoint, those specifically housing operated facilities, are student organizations. But everybody else on campus has to pay. And we do have the same 30-day rule.
We have one room in the conference center, smaller, that the campus can use free. They pay a part rate on a coffee break station, but other than that, we're a little bit different, that we're 70% external business. And so we can free sell to external if it's a good piece of business, whether it's a day meeting or overnight rooms, we can free sell. It's our call as the management.
We have the luxury with executive education to know 75 to 80% of the business that the business school is bringing into us, usually 6 months, 9 months to a year out, and then we can kind of fit the spots in around it. But there have been times when we could have an association wanting to book with us a year out, and maybe we don't have those dates yet. We would go back to the business school and say, we got this group, historically you've used space during this time frame. What's the plan? And sometimes they turn around and say, okay, well, we usually do, but if you get that business, we'll move it back a week. So again, it's a good connection, sorting out some of these challenges.
So, I'm hearing all this, and it's just very interesting because Penn State, we are, for Penn State or hotel, we are completely independent, we are part of Penn State, we are our best customer. We actually have, to the initial question, we have 3 pricing DMPs. We do basic, a premium, and then we have a PSU pricing, which is the basic, but a little bit cheaper. Because nobody has money in any budget on campus. What's interesting is we're booking 5 years out. We can book anybody. We're not. In fact, I just dealt with a situation with the Penn State Board of Trustees and a regular client, a blasting conference that's been coming there for years. And it's interfering, and they thought we were playing favoritism to the Board of Trustees. And actually, we don't. We don't play favoritism to anybody. It's first come, first served. But it's totally different than, like, I'm hearing these and going, oh my goodness, we're a fully functioning hotel conference center we're just off campus, but most of our business is somehow Penn State related, even the corporate stuff, because of Penn State's connections. A lot of associations. We get a lot of state business because we are literally in the middle of the state, so we're inconveniently located to everybody in the state. To be honest.
But Penn State owns it, right?
Yes, I am an employee of Penn State University. They actually originally was Scanacon, was the managing facility. So I've been there since '94 and seen a lot of changes and at one point Penn State never got anything free, but it was a lot of discounts. But then we we had to become self-sustaining probably 15 years ago or more. And at that point, we got authorization just to do sell what we need to, where we need to. But to keep the relationships with Penn State, we do have the discounted package for them. But guest rooms fluctuate depending on seasons.
Is that discount package available anytime or just in certain windows?
No, actually, their discounted DMP is, because it's only a few dollars less than our basic. So the only people losing money is our department.
So what about on a football weekend?
Football weekend, nobody holds business because there's no guest rooms. And if there is any conference or meeting related, it's a day, usually on a Friday, because we are sold out. We have, I think our rate is like $300 some a night, and we're the cheapest in State College. Because we don't need to do the $5.99. We don't want to do that. We don't want to compete necessarily. We want to be fair. But we also host the football team, so we have, everybody has a 2-night minimum. But nobody wants to. You don't have guest rooms, so nobody's booking. Those are sold out a year in advance, the guest rooms. So those rates are definitely higher.
How are they sold?
Football weekend is on a certain date so far out. I think it's like 10 months out. You put in an offer.
Set the schedule?
We say, okay, this is how much it's going to be, and you can start buying tickets or buying guest rooms. And then we have a wait list, and people drop, and they're charged no matter what, unless we find somebody else to fill their room, and then we'll. But yeah, it's.
Ours are similar.
Yeah.
It's all sold on that day.
Yep.
At the same time.
Yeah.
Alumni takes
Yep.
all of them.
Yeah, pretty much. And then we get the complaints from the president's office wants so many rooms, and the alumni association wants so many guest rooms that weekend for this home football game. Hey, we're playing Ohio State. We need 30 rooms. Good luck. You're not going to, maybe in 40 miles away, you might be able to find a room.
So how many rooms do you all have?
We have 300 guest rooms.
We only have 147.
Okay. 125, I'm at 254.
I'm associated with
Okay.
that facility. What's interesting is that when these facilities first start out, it seems like academia kind of sets the policy and runs the guidelines, and then somebody in finance gets involved and says, wait a second, this thing's like a white elephant, let's start booking some more external business, let's start offsetting our costs. We were at your place last year, and you had the David Geffen building over there, and you had the Terry Samel building over here, so maybe because of your billion-dollar donors, you'll never go through that evolution.
Well, the interesting thing is that the way, once again, UCLA works, there are certain entities that are considered auxiliary entities. So they are money-making, for-profit things that are affiliated with the university. For instance, housing. UCLA Housing is for-profit. We are run like a corporation. So Luskin was folded into our entity because many of us came from the hospitality industry. So, there is no ifs, ands, or buts. Luskin was built to make a profit. Hence nobody gets anything for free. And same thing, from that housing entity, when I said the only folks that get anything for free within UCLA for those meeting spaces are student organizations, and they have to be a resident of housing in order to be able to get that space for free. So from that aspect, we were never not-for-profit or let's not make a profit. From the get-go, doors open, you need to make money.
What's interesting, you should say 15 years ago you decided
Well,
maybe there's a money-making venture? We were kind of in that 20 years ago.
When the facility first opened, when it opened in the ScanCon, a market study was done that said 80% of this business coming to this hotel will be university-driven, and 20% will be corporate. Complete opposite in reality.
Yeah.
The ScanCon sales team was selling to corporate. We were getting drug corps and other manufacturers, all kinds of business in. And they didn't like, conferences and institutes didn't like that aspect. So there was some fighting and basically some disagreements. But yeah.
I'd like to move on to point 2, using campus culture in service delivery. We have some time for that one. So who would like to? Okay, we're going to get a new Yeah, could you give some more background?
In all of our situations, we're obviously tied to the culture that's happening on campus, right? We're in many ways the living room of the university. And how are we utilizing the elements of the university and how we're delivering service with our clients to kind of pull that through? Does that help clarify or not help clear? At all?
Somewhat.
So I sat in a meeting recently and that was discussed. And the comment was, we talked about service, we talked about culture, and really they have nothing to do with each other. You can provide service, you don't provide culture. But the conversation went totally towards engagement at the university, whether it's with your employees or the people who are coming to the hotel or anyone at the university. How do you engage them? Make them feel that they are the owners, make them feel part of what you're doing, get them involved in what you're doing, talk to them, get their advice in what you're doing, and make them feel part of it, and then the discussions always go a lot smoother. But it was really more about engagement. That was the answer.
I mean, I guess the only thing I could say to that is, one of the things that I realized quickly with working with Luskin is that our sales managers aren't really selling the Luskin Conference Center, they are selling UCLA. So specifically with the Med Center Enterprises and Anderson, those clients of ours have a certain expectation of the service that we deliver, because all of those programs are within the top 10, of the U.S. programs. Many of them say, well, then from a hotel and conference service center aspect, you need to be able to deliver what people would think of coming to visit the Anderson School or the UCLA Medical Center or the Geffen School, Medical School, or the Nursing School, or any of those. The law school even, we're starting to. So I guess from that aspect, yes, there is a certain expectation of the quality of service that we deliver, that it has to be equal to the reputations that those schools offer.
So coming from a private center along those same lines,
Mhm.
Where your owner is your customer,
Mhm.
at least in a higher percentage, or in my case, total percentage,
Mhm.
it's extremely important to understand the culture of the owner. It prevails everything. So while as a management company, you have your own identity and your own culture, you really have to understand how to blend those two worlds to be able to provide the service that the owner is expecting. For my particular property, it's about flawless execution. It's about making sure that the stewards understand what a government shutdown can do and understand how that can affect them in their day-to-day life. And that's just haven't found to be common elsewhere. So while you strive to maintain your own identity, I think it was important for us over the years to figure out how to align and connect with the owner. And for us, Chair was there years ago as well. We're literally behind an iron gate. So you spend more time with the owner than you do with your hospitality management company. So I think that over time, you start to adopt that culture by proxy. You have to.
Well, I think before the session started, you hit the nail on the head with the word hybrid, right? University hotels are not just hotels, and they're not just university pieces. They're a hybrid. In a lot of these situations, I spent a lot of the time, drawing back the curtain. And we're so used to having what we do happen behind the scenes, and you kind of have to pull that curtain back for university people to say, this is the way that this works, and this is why it's happening this way, and have that conversation, and that'll impact your service culture, your cost mentality, and what structure and restrictions you're going to put on it. Those are not easy conversations, and most of the time they have to happen repeatedly before it sinks in, because you factor in the pace of universities, which tends to be a little bit slower than things would happen when we're on the open market.
Well, and understanding priorities and how they change. What may be a priority today, when you lay the cost benefit in front of them, and all of a sudden the priority isn't, all right, limit the impact to the bottom line. It is, no, we need that space. And being able to have the relationship to have that conversation and get their buy-in on it is huge. And if you do, then it doesn't matter if tomorrow you didn't quite, bring the return back that you thought you would. or that, no, you don't in fact have that room available, that's okay. We can change our dates, or whoever Al said, shift by a week.
So I'm going to probably put a different complexion on this a little bit, I think, insofar as this idea of culture. I mean, I'm curious, after Al's keynote this afternoon, which is all about innovation and creating this culture, I really was hoping maybe just discuss a little bit about using all that talent. I mean, there's some of those core competencies, right? Is this huge student workforce and all this immense amount of talent on the campus, which I've just sort of been implementing to really tie it in with learning outcomes, tie it into the campus, this idea of actually employing students outside the classroom and taking on this, preparing them to enter the workplace, right, and so on. But it's kind of, I'm trying to make a culture that is utilizing all those resources, and what I'm discovering is this immense untapped talent right there, where we can truly innovate. I mean, it's been wonderful. So I'm hoping that you can avail yourself of that. I don't know how that works for you. I've got higher student programs, all kinds of things. We have programs that teach them quality service. It is engagement in a lot of ways, but it's a lot of things, actually.
We're looking forward to engaging a lot of the student population in the coming fiscal year, so starting June 1. What I found out when I first came on board is that they had done a lot of renovations last year. June 1 of 17 is when our property kind of reopened. And in all of the last year, they never had budgeted for students to come on site and work. It just wasn't there. But it's something we would put in for the coming year. So looking forward to that.
Katie, would you like to say anything else, Jim?
Yeah, I was, I don't know if it so much hits your topic, but again, in kind of listening, I find that, and I'm with the management company side, but it's a very, like you were saying, it's an interesting balance between company culture and campus culture. And we found that it's in the real slightest elements that you can incorporate. So when a guest comes to the front desk at any of our campus hotel facilities, they have no idea that a management company runs it. They assume it's somebody who works at the university. So if the person behind the front desk knows the football schedule, they would expect them to know the football schedule. Don't you work for the university? Of course you know the football schedule, A name tag, just having university logos on it. I mean, all those very slight elements are really what ties the two, helps tie the two cultures together. And I think so it's from the guest perspective, one, but I think it's personal for the employee as well, because if the employee is empowered to know what's going on campus and understand the sports schedule and understand parking and understand things that are even outside of the hotel environment but are campus initiatives and things going on as part of campus life, that's really, and it makes them feel more connected to the campus as well, in addition to understanding the management company or entity if they're working for one. But that's some of the things that I know that we've really empowered our associates to try and blend that culture. And on the student side, I mean, I personally think having student workers on a college campus is very empowering. And it's a connecting factor and a relationship piece also between the company and.
It comes with its challenges.
Yes, it's absolutely, yeah.
No, so.
It has challenges. We, due to union regulations, if you are not a full-time employee, supervisor, manager, things like that, you can only work 20 hours a week. So what adult wants to work 20 hours a week? Unless you're a student, then you can work, make a living off it. If you're a student, you can work 30 hours a week, and if you're in a hotel restaurant management student, you can work 40 hours a week. We have some great students, we really do. And if we can get them early enough and they're right, they stick for 40 years, and that's good. We have a lot of turnover because of the students, and that causes problems. It causes expense in training, because we have extensive customer service training, we have their individual department training, and things like that. And then banquets is suffering for lunches, because what students have at lunch. So, and then you also have the students that are just there, yeah. And the students, then you have students that are there for beer money, so they are just, they don't care.
As invested as it needs to be to beer.
Yes, so it's nice having that young atmosphere there and support and training. And we are part of the university. We do extend, we have a lot of internship programs through the School of Hotel Restaurant Management. But there's just some definite challenges to having that student. It'd be nice to have.
And we did address that head on. I mean, so we've got this very elaborate training schedule. They come in, you know, they start off as an L1, they go to L2, then L3 and L4, and it's tied into their these learning outcomes, you know, for accreditation purposes and so on. So that works out beautifully. I'm able to pull in this idea of you know, the learning outcomes along with preparing them for their, you know, for success now, right? Get them up to speed as fast as I can. I know they're going to be graduating soon and get them out the door. And then sometimes there's a wonderful case study right where they started as L1 and now they're full-time employees, which is wonderful. So it's definitely a challenge, but if you can grease those wheels.
Right, we get this. What? I have to do work? I'm out of here. So we get a lot of students that say, working in a hotel is hard work.
It's tough.
And
it's their first job.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, time is more than up. We've gone beyond that. Thank you very much for your active participation. I'd like to ask everybody, after we close off, just to sit down and write down 1 or 2 things that you think are important takeaways, but so that everybody can do that in their own time. On behalf of Nancy and myself, thank you very much for your active participation. I hope it was useful for all of you, and hope to see you in one of the other sessions soon. Nancy, would you like to close off by saying something?
Yeah, I think we all work in very unique environments that are dictated primarily by our ownership and what their needs and desires are, and we learn how to run hospitality organizations in the midst of that, which sometimes can be a huge opportunity, sometimes a huge challenge. So thank you for sharing today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Where did you,